Welcome back to episode 7 of Paige and Micah in the PM. After a week off, we are back and ready to talk some football. This week, focusing on college football as we approach the final week of play before bowl games are announced. Micah, did you have a nice Thanksgiving?
I did. My Thanksgiving was great, although the weekend after with some of the games was not as enjoyable.
True. You know what they say, rivalry weekend is one of the most exciting weekends in college football, always leaving us with a few surprises, and definitely did this past weekend.
Yeah.
Starting us off, we're going to recap Oregon State at Oregon. Wasn't really a big surprise, but, Oregon is really proving their dominance, winning that one 31-7, and I think ultimately this could earn them that top 4 spot in the college football playoffs. They have Washington now coming up next in the Pac-12 championship, but I think after their performance this weekend, they definitely deserve to be in the running for that.
Definitely depends on how the committee views Florida State with the backup in as Tate Rodemaker's taking the reins for them with Jordan Travis down. But I think this definitely was a good resume builder for them. Oregon State is a good team, ranked at the back end of the top 25 right now. So good win for Oregon, although I do want to say I thought this game would be closer, even with how good Oregon is, and I think part of that is due to the whole Jonathan Smith saga at Oregon State right now. He told that team for a month that he wasn't going anywhere, then brought a players' meeting the night before the game to announce he was leaving for Michigan State, and then now interim head coach Kefensa Henson led the team out of the tunnel for that game. So just a bit off in the culture for Oregon State going into that one maybe, and that's why they came out flat, I think.
I mean, yeah, obviously, with your coach leaving right before the game, that's going to do a lot to you. But I still think that for how well this Oregon offense was just humming.
But they definitely played well. I don't want to take away from that. Oregon definitely played well.
Oregon played amazing. I think the score, suits that perfectly. Bo Nix going for 367 yards, 2 touchdowns, including 1 rushing touchdown, too.
Another game with no turnovers.
Another game with no turnovers. They had 2 receivers catch for over 100 yards. I mean, Oregon is just continuing to prove their dominance week in and week out, and I was very happy with how this game turned out.
The Ducks look very good.
Very good. Next in the state of Florida, as we can see,
hey guys, the state of Florida.
The state of Florida.
Where nothing ever goes how you want it to.
Not how Micah wants it to go.
This game was played in the swamp between, although you would never know it based off some of the stuff that was said in the broadcast, 2 backup quarterbacks, not just one, as Tate Rodemaker led Florida State and Max Brown led Florida in this game. And Max Brown started off playing really well for the Gators, actually making some really good throws, and then classic Billy Napier, they condensed the playbook, and I didn't really understand it because they were up 12-0. They had Florida State on the ropes.
Yes, they did.
And then the offensive play calling became very conservative, taking the ball out of Max Brown's hands, giving it more to a rushing game that had been up and down. Trevor Etienne not really playing much, and so it was all on Montrell Johnson. And when you have a 2-back system all year, going into the last half of a rivalry game and going, okay, it's now all on you, I don't understand that coaching decision with how well Brown played for a lot of the game. And then Florida State's run game took over. Trey Benson played really well, and one guy who really made the difference in this game for the Seminoles was Jared Verse, their edge rusher. The entire second half, it felt like he was in the Florida backfield every single play. Max Brown could not get away from him, and he absolutely wrecked the Gators' offense. It was a big part of why Florida State was able to come back and win this one.
Florida State outscored Florida 24-3 after being down 12-0. Talk about a comeback. And with Jordan Travis being gone, Tate Rodemaker as your backup quarterback, a lot was riding on this team this weekend and a lot riding on them as they are approaching the ACC championship game. But I think very good performance from him and very good performance from this team, and excited to see how this championship game is going to go.
For sure.
In the state of Washington, we had Washington State at number 4 Washington. Wow. This was a close one. Washington winning it on a game-winning field goal. Whew. That one had me on the edge of my seat. I don't know about you.
Yeah, this is classic Apple Cup. Very good game. It always feels like with games like this, it doesn't matter the record of either team going in. It's going to be a good game. And this Washington State offense led by Cam Ward played really well. Ward did throw 2 interceptions, but I think this offense is a bit underrated at this point in the year, and they're being held back by a horrific defense. But the Washington offense this one was just better. Michael Penix going for 204, 2 touchdowns. Did throw an interception, but Romo Dunze in this one was really the difference for Washington, having 2 touchdowns and then
Crucial touchdowns.
a little fancy play design on a jet sweep end around to gain a crucial first down for Washington late in the game that set up the game-winning field goal as time expired for the Huskies. So credit to Romo Dunze, credit to the offense, and if Washington can beat Oregon this week, they should be guaranteed a playoff spot.
I think we also need to give some credit to this Washington State offense, specifically their quarterback Cam Ward, throwing for 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, which that ultimately might have lost them the game. But, I mean, wow, a Lincoln Victor touchdown in the 4th, tied them up with Washington, and then that field goal. But that was a game. It was a good game. We knew it would be a good one. The Apple Cup never fails to disappoint. And finally, the game was the game of the weekend as number 2, Ohio State traveled to number 3, Michigan. What a game. Michigan winning that one 30-24. Micah, you've been talking all season about Kyle McCord and how he's not the guy. And I think that game-losing interception really, they proved.
Kyle McCord in this game, I will admit, showed some flashes and played well in some portions, but some throws, you just wonder where he is going with the football. Then the game-losing play, throwing the interception to Rod Moore, I think it's very clear McCord is just not built for these moments yet, like I've been saying all year. So personally, I saw that coming. I don't know how many other people did, but I said Michigan was going to win this game all year, and indeed they did. The one thing I would be worried about for the Wolverines is their star offensive guard, Zach Zinter, went down with a season-ending injury, and this one was actually taken to the hospital for further testing in the middle of this game. And with how much Michigan relies on their run game, that is a big part of that rushing game. Because every time you're running an outside zone type of play or you're using misdirection or a counter, Zinter is that guy who's going to be pulling and setting up more blocks down the field and really helping you break off these big runs. So I think that could be a massive loss for Michigan. I know we think, okay, 1 offensive lineman, you have 4 other ones. But this guy's also the heart and soul of this team. So I think that's a very big loss for the Wolverines, and we'll have to see how it affects them in the postseason.
We've talked a lot about this Michigan rushing offense and just how dominant they've been all season. So definitely losing this player is it's going to hit their team very hard. But you know what? They've got the Big Ten championship coming up, so we'll see how they can perform in that without him. I think they'll do pretty well.
Well, Iowa can't score, so.
True. That's true. Other notables from this weekend, we had BYU keeping it close at Oklahoma State. 2 overtime game of Oklahoma State coming out with the win, 40-34.
BYU didn't just keep it close in this one. They jumped out ahead. They had the Cowboys scared. They had Oklahoma sitting at home going, oh, we might go to the Big 12 title game. And then Ollie Gordon said, no, I am not letting this happen.
He said, this is my game.
He had 34 carries, 166 yards, and 5 touchdowns on the ground. That record tied some old guy you may have heard of, Barry Sanders, for the most touchdowns in a game in school history on the ground. So great game from Ollie Gordon, secures Oklahoma State a Big 12 title game spot.
Number 1 Georgia at Georgia Tech, winning 31-23. Close game for these Bulldogs, who did hold on to their number 1 spot. But dang,
Georgia Tech's not bad. I've been saying this all year. Georgia Tech is not bad.
But this game shouldn't have been as close as it.
It definitely shouldn't have been as close, but Georgia Tech is a weird team this year. A lot of chaos with them over the course of their season. They knocked off North Carolina earlier this year, then got blown out by Bowling Green. Very weird team, but Hayes King has played well all year. The Georgia Tech defense was able to force 2 turnovers, and you look at that and you say, if you force 2 turnovers and win this turnover battle 2-0, you got to be able to come away with the upset, and unfortunately they just were not able to finish it off. The talent gap, I think, is still too big in this one.
I do think
Georgia is a far superior team talent-wise to Georgia Tech, and I do think that showed, hence why the Bulldogs were able to leave Atlanta with a win.
Iowa State at number 19, Kansas State getting the upset, 42-35.
Chaos!
I mean, chaos,
yes,
with the snow and everything.
Heavy snow game. This game was a blast to watch. I don't know if any of y'all tuned in, but you should have if you didn't, because it was so much fun. Abu Sama for Iowa State had 16 carries for 276 yards and 3 touchdowns.
That's a lot.
Of Iowa State's 5 touchdowns in this game, or of their 6 touchdowns, 5 of them came from 60 or more yards away. So explosive play after explosive play for the Cyclones, and their only other touchdown was 33, so it's not like it was short either. And just Kansas State had 23 more first downs in this one, possessed the ball for over 24 more minutes than Iowa State, and still lost. So it's one of those crazy games. These snow games, you usually don't expect to see explosive offense like this, but there's an exception for everything. So
I mean, Paige and Micah, the weathermen. Snow games are special.
Snow games are special. There's your weather tip of the week. Snow is special.
From Paige and Micah, the weathermen. In the state of Alabama, a heartbreaker for us here at Auburn, but a good game nonetheless. Number 8 Alabama outlasting Auburn in the Iron Bowl 27-24, winning it on a 4th and 31 with less than 30 seconds to play.
Yeah, 4th and goal from the 31-yard line after a missed snap on 2nd down and an illegal forward pass on 3rd down. Jordan Hare, the excitement was palpable. Everyone in that stadium thought Auburn was going to knock off the Crimson Tide and they were going to get to rush the field. And instead, Jalen Milroe found Isaiah Bond in the back corner of the end zone over DJ James, and Alabama was able to come away with a win. And
the
as
stadium
much
fell
as
silent.
Yeah, the stadium was absolutely silent. As much as this isn't fun to talk about, you have to give credit to Alabama in this game, I think, I think a lot of teams would have folded on that 4th and 31.
I agree.
Just kind of panic, throw out some weird lateral play or something. But Jalen Milroe, I know he wasn't getting rushed at all, but the poise to be able to go through his reads and find Isaiah Bond in the back of the end zone, I think that says a lot about Milroe, who played great in this game. Auburn could not contain him in the rushing game. He kept breaking away, still had 259 yards to the air and 2 touchdowns, over 350 total yards in the game. So great game from Milroe. But another crushing loss for Auburn this season versus a rival at home.
But you know what? War Eagle anyways. War Eagle anyways. And finally, our last game and last upset, Kentucky outlasting Louisville 38-31. Louisville turned the ball over 3 times while Kentucky only did once. And we talk a lot about turnovers, and really anyone who watches college football knows, or football in general, turnovers lose games.
Yes.
And that was what bit Louisville this past weekend and what gave Kentucky the win.
Yeah, in recent years, Mark Stoops and Kentucky have definitely had Louisville's number. You come in this season, Jeff Brom's really turned this team around. They're ranked top 10. Is this the year that Louisville finally gets it done, especially at home? And just too many mistakes. As you said, the Jack Plummer pick, also fumbled the ball. Jawar Jordan fumbled the ball. You got to hold on to the ball if you want to win these games, especially in a rivalry game where everything is closer anyway.
And everything just means more.
Yeah.
Everything's so much more intense.
You don't want to give your opponent any advantages like that. So what could have been for Louisville, I think a big missed opportunity for them here.
I agree. As the season winds down, we've got a fun little season awards section for y'all. We're going to go through and rank some of these teams and conferences and players and how they stacked up after what was a crazy college football season. But dang, I just loved this one so much. Best conference, we've got to give it to the SEC. They've got the most teams in the top 25 right now, per usual. But, I mean, SEC is just continuing its dominance.
I will say honorable mention to the Pac-12 here because of Oregon and Washington, and then Arizona, Oregon State up there as well. We ultimately decided that the SEC is just deeper than the Pac-12 this year, despite similar ranked teams at the top. The SEC is like number 6 or number 7 team we feel would beat the Pac-12 6 or 7 team fairly easily, and for that reason we have the SEC. And that's also where our biggest underdog story of the year comes from, and a team you might know very well from listening to me talk on the show, in the Missouri Tigers. So
we could not leave y'all
one
without
final
Micah's
Mizzou minute. Yeah,
yes.
One final Mizzou minute on the year. Credit to Eli Drinkwitz, and the young talent on this team is so good. Brady Cook, Luther Burden. It's Chris Abrams-Drain, I think, has gone under the radar, but has been a very good DB for the Tigers this year. So give Missouri their credit. Great underdog season from the Tigers.
Our offensive player of the year is going to go to Jaden Daniels. He has thrown for almost 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions.
Yeah, 10-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. You're doing something right.
You're doing good, and just very excited to see how this continues out. Unfortunately, LSU not playing for the SEC championship.
I would not want to draw LSU in a bowl game.
I would not either. There's a lot of talk about my Notre Dame Fighting Irish getting them.
You'd get murdered.
Oh, we so would. As much as I love my Irish, I don't think we could
stand a
compete
chance
with that.
in that game.
And Defensive Player of the Year, Micah, you want to talk a little bit about this
Yes,
guy?
if you guys have not watched Leatu Latu, go do it right now. Go to YouTube, pull up Leatu Latu film, and have a good time, because this guy is an absolute game wrecker. Had 14 sacks on the year, 11 QB hits, 39 QB hurries, had a 23% pass rush win rate, which might not sound amazing, but that is very high level in college football especially. Was graded as a 93.7 pass rush grade by PFF, which was the highest in the nation by an edge rusher. Was also graded the highest in coverage of any edge rusher by PFF with a 94.6 coverage grade. Had 2 interceptions on the season, and he was a great run defender as well, set the edge, had 2 forced fumbles on the year, did everything for UCLA. On a defense that does not have many standout players, this man led the UCLA defense to the category being a very good defense in college football this season, almost single-handedly. I think he should be a top 5 pick in the draft, although I don't think he will be because of medical red flags, but he's just amazing. I could talk about Leatu Latu for hours, but we don't have that kind of time, so I think we're going to have to move on to our next award, which is the Snatch Defeat from the Jaws of Victory Award, which is going to the Miami Hurricanes for their fiasco against Georgia Tech this year.
Wild. Just wild. That's all I have to say.
All you have to do is kneel the ball, guys. It's not that difficult.
Not that hard, but sometimes it is, and we'll just never know.
Yeah.
We'll never know. And finally, the Houston Astros Award, kind of a bit of a funny one, going to Michigan and Connor Stallions.
Yes.
I mean, we could not. This is the biggest storyline of the season. We couldn't leave without mentioning it. But kudos to this Michigan team for continuing to win. And I mean, the game I think really sealed the deal for them, and they can do it all even without their head coach. So
yes, for sure. Michigan obviously played really well this year, but you never know if FBI comes and searches the locker room at any point. I know the investigation's closed, but if that were to ever happen, you never know. Maybe find some trash cans down there, little Astros trash cans,
Oh
or
my goodness.
little guys with binoculars up in the booth looking behind the other team's sideline. Just some espionage type stuff going on in Ann Arbor this year, so we had to give them a little credit for that.
Conference championships are this weekend, and these are really just going to decide who gets in and who doesn't. And I love that this season there's no clear favorite as to who's in and who's out, and a lot of these teams are just prepping and waiting and just gonna have to give it their all. This is the point in the season where you do have to give your best.
I think this is the first year we've gone into a conference title week, and there is, as you said, absolutely no team that has a 100% chance to make it. Any of these teams could lose this weekend. I think your safest team is probably Michigan, just because Iowa can't score, but the Iowa defense is no joke, so Michigan's offense might have a tough time, especially without Zach Zenter, so I have to see what happens there. I still think Michigan wins that game fairly easily. Then I think your next most interesting game is in the Big 12, as Texas will take on Oklahoma State.
That could be a good one.
A game that Texas won close earlier this season, so another good rematch for that.
Yeah, don't sleep on Oklahoma State. I mean, we saw their performance this past weekend.
Although the Texas run defense has been elite this season. Their pass defense has been shaky, but look for them to try to shut down Ollie Gordon in this game, and I think if they can do that successfully, they win.
Another one we've been talking about a lot is Florida State and Louisville. I think if you would have told me everything with Jordan Travis not being able to play anymore, and then Louisville just climbing throughout the season, I would have been like Louisville all the way. But Louisville just got beat last weekend, and Florida State proved that they can, in fact, do it with Tate Rodmaker. So I think I'm going Florida State on this one, and I think there's a lot riding on them right now with this is going to decide if they're in or if they're out. So, I mean, I think they've got it in the bag.
I do think you have to give credit to the Florida State team for their win they got in Gainesville, but I also think we need to acknowledge how good this Louisville defense has been all year. They've been playing very well all season. They are much better than the Florida defense, far and away. It's frankly not even close. And conference championship environment, neutral site, give me Louisville this weekend.
All right, interesting. And the SEC, we don't even need to talk about this game, really. It's Alabama and Georgia.
Surprise.
I mean, surprise, surprise. Who saw this coming?
Everyone,
yeah. I mean, I think Georgia's got this one locked in. We've seen what Alabama can do in the final 30 seconds of a game.
Georgia has never beaten Alabama in an SEC championship game, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Georgia is yet to beat the Tide in an SEC championship game all time. So
you know what they say, Micah?
There's a first time for
everything. There is a first time for everything, so it could happen.
Speaking of a first time for everything, Oregon has never won a national title.
this could be the year. We never know.
I think they get it done this year. They
I
get
do
Washington in the Pac-12 title game. I know they haven't been playing the best defenses, but this Oregon team, week in, week out, since the Washington loss, has been the most dominant team in the nation, and I think it hasn't been particularly close.
Give me Oregon.
So give me Oregon in this one. Watch Washington come in and just find their old form and win this one and make everyone look silly, but I right now think this is Oregon's Pac-12 to lose.
The CFP committee released its final set of rankings today. This is the last set before Selection Sunday coming up this Sunday, December 3rd. And I mean, not much changed other than Michigan and Ohio State, but our top 6 coming in was Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Oregon, and then Ohio State at 6, which I think after this past weekend is, that's good.
You see Florida State move back into the top 4 after the Ohio State loss. It's just really a question of what happens in the Pac-12 title game. If Florida State loses to Louisville, what happens with the Big 12 champion? So we'll have to see. But as for our predictions, we have Georgia knocking off Alabama, remaining in that 1 slot. Michigan taking care of business versus Iowa, staying in the 2 slot. Then we have Oregon upsetting Washington, getting into the 3 slot. And then our 4th slot, we have the Texas Longhorns. After beating Oklahoma State, winning the Big 12, another 1-loss conference champion gets into the playoffs.
There's no way they can be left out. If they win, there's no way they can be left out.
If Florida State wins, I think there's definitely a way they can get left out. But they need a Florida State loss, and I think they're guaranteed a spot if they can win. But Texas is really going to be rooting for the Cardinals on Saturday.
I do too. I think so too. And at 5, we have Ohio State after that loss to Michigan. I think this was just a guarantee out for them. There is still a possibility, depending on how some things shake up.
I think it's very difficult for Ohio State.
I think it's very unlikely, but you know what?
I think you need...
It could happen.
You need a big Washington win. You need Georgia to win, Michigan to win. You need Florida State to lose to Louisville, and you need Texas to lose to Oklahoma State. So there is a path, but I think it is a very difficult one for the Buckeyes.
And very unlikely. And then at 6, we had Florida State, ultimately. Don't know if they can get that win against Louisville, and that is just...
Yeah.
That
and
game,
if they lose to
I think
Louisville,
the Florida State and Louisville game is going to determine a lot.
That game is really going to determine who gets your 3 and 4 slots, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens with that. But that is all we had for you this week on Paige and Micah in the PM. We'll be looking forward to conference title matchups this week. And we won't be back with you guys next week as it is exam week and our brains are going to be exploding on that front and we won't have a lot of space for sports. But we will see you guys back after Christmas break to wrap up the NFL season and the NFL playoffs. So until then, this has been Paige and Micah in the PM.